At the beginning, we meet Abigail, the young ballerina, who expresses herself, and there's Joey, who is eating a lollipop while waiting for the car with Frank and Peter. Sammy is the hacker on their team, who needs to hack into the house and cameras while the sniper is in position. After practice, Abigail gets into a car that has a bomb hidden on it, so the team prepares while Sammy is struggling with a failed hack, and Dean is flirting around and playing music, which she turns off as she opens the gate for the masked team. The team enters the house while the others wait in the car and notice that the target vehicle is approaching. However, Joey didn't know that their target is a child, so she protests, but now there's no turning back. Meanwhile, Abigail enters her room while on the phone, and the others are hiding, but she notices someone rustling around and doesn't pay much attention to it. Suddenly, Frank grabs Abigail, and the others join in, giving her an injection and putting her in a black bag. However, her father returns, which wasn't part of the plan, but they manage to slip past him and get into a van where they blindfold her. Sammy helps him with the cameras so they won't be seen, and they successfully return home, where their boss Lambert is waiting. The rule is that no one knows each other's real names or backstories, only to focus on their jobs. Abigail is placed in a room where only one person can see her, so she hears only one voice, which is Joey. They also take away their phones so that no one can trace them. Abigail's father is a wealthy man, and they expect at least $50 million from him. Lambert leaves them to babysit Abigail for 24 hours, and they are curious about who her father is. One says he is a tech billionaire. Another claims he's involved in real estate, while Joey refuses to participate in the guessing game, and Dean decides to try guessing who they are but fails miserably. Frank challenges Joey and offers money for her to guess who he is, and she correctly identifies him as a former police officer, specifically a detective, based on his walk and stance. Peter wants to join in and offers money for her to guess his history. He was bullied by his father and those at school, so he became muscular to compensate for his insecurities. She guesses Sammy's profession as a hacker and takes the money. Trickles has no money, while Dean wants her to guess, but she refuses, saying he isn't a professional and has loose wiring, so he's a psychopath. Frank finally jumps in and says she's a junkie, and a cop can spot one when they see it. It's about her candy addiction and long sleeves that give her away. After that, Joey goes to Abigail's room, who is scared due to the situation, and Joey helps her by pulling up the blindfold so she can see, then removes the handcuffs that are hurting her. Abigail is afraid they might hurt her and asks if she knows who her father is, but Joey doesn't want to know and promises not to hurt her, saying they only want his money. Abigail replies they have made a mistake because her father doesn't care about her and expresses regret for what will happen. Joey then returns to the others and asks Frank about the girl's father, but he says it's not important. Still, he goes to her room, and his identity is revealed when she isn't blindfolded, which he didn't expect, but she denies seeing him and asks who her father is, to which she responds that it is Christophe Lazare. Frank freezes at the name and decides to leave, while the others wonder why. When they find out, they realize they are marked for death because he is one of the most dangerous men. Joey tells them to leave Abigail and everyone exits the place, but Frank insists that Abigail has already seen his face. He trusts Lambert but thinks the risk is too high. Dean doesn't want to leave because he urgently needs money, and they can forget who her father is and continue with their work as before, taking enough money to live on and retire. They have 22 hours left, and they will check every place so that no one can approach them. Joey goes to investigate the location, which leads her to a big room. Nearby, Rickles is in sniper position and hears her steps, so he calls out, saying not to trust the others and to watch each other's backs, which she agrees to. At the same time, Sammy is watching a cartoon, and Dean sneaks up behind her, scaring her. He wants to vibe out with her, but she forces him to leave. Meanwhile, Dean finds a new victim, which is Peter, who is asleep, and he uses a marker on his face. Then he finds a random picture of some girl, and his path leads him to a fridge that he opens. However, the door behind him opens by itself, and there's no one there. He goes to check, and it turns out there's no one. But as he returns, someone pulls him by the leg, and while he screams, Sammy goes to check, thinking Dean is joking, but his head isn't joking. Peter wakes up and sees headless Dean, which makes him uneasy and brings the whole team here. They think it's one of the Lazar men stalking them, and missing body parts is his signature. There isn't another entrance. They check everywhere and go to Abigail, where she is still present. Rickles now wants to leave because he's had enough. He opens a door and sees bars that are locked, which weren't there when they arrived. Peter also tries to open it, which is impossible. Not only is the door locked, but the windows are also closing, and now it looks like a trap. Joey wants to ask Abigail if she's hiding a secret from them, and she implies that Frank said he works for her father and that his real name is Valdez, which isn't true. Rickles announces this, which brings them closer together, thinking that Frank is in Traitor with Lambert, so they decide to fight against the other members to get out of here. Rickles will deal with Frank, but a few seconds later, Joey hears a scream and upon approaching, notices he is badly hurt where he collapses and dies. She pulls out her gun and points it at Sammy and Peter, asking where Frank is. At that moment, he appears, surprised to be in her sights, so he pulls out his own gun. Joey thinks he is Valdez and that he brought them all here to kill them. He disagrees, thinking the girl has gotten into her head and isn't thinking straight while his team drops like flies, sending Peter to shoot Abigail. Joey follows closely, intercepting his shot. Then she aims her gun at him while the others join in. Abigail is crying the whole time and suddenly frees herself from the handcuffs effortlessly. While everyone watches in disbelief, she strikes a pose before attacking Peter, and Frank shoots her in the head. But that isn't the end, as she gets up and wipes the wound as if it were a summer tattoo. Joey uses her ammunition on her, and they all exit, locking her inside. They gather and finally realize what situation they're in. They've kidnapped a vampire ballerina who is Valdez. They discuss strategies on how to attack the vampire, but don't have many options. Peter goes to sharpen pool sticks, and Joey suggests that instead of killing her, they should trade her to her father for their lives, while Sammy brings onions instead of garlic. Joey stays behind while everyone else goes to her room with weapons this time, but she isn't in the room. Swan Lake plays in the background as they go downstairs, where they see her dancing with headless Dean. Sammy, with the garlic, attacks her, and Abigail smells it like a flower, then hits Frank. Peter picks her up, but then falls and stabs him with a cross, while Frank joins in and gets stabbed in the leg. After this failure, they all slip out, and Joey as a medic helps Frank. Since no weapons worked against her, they only have the injection left that can put her to sleep, and it worked the first time on her. The plan is to distract her so she can use the moment for the syringe. However, Sammy seems to have gone too far because her comms are cutting out, and a bat scares her, causing her to fall into a dirty pool full of dead bodies, and Joey goes to check. In the meantime, Peter looks at a small scratch on his finger, and Abigail shows up. Peter runs away screaming and slams the door behind her, which she easily breaks through with her ballet moves, but Frank opens the door and pushes him down below. Frank runs while she plays with him, pushing him down as well. Abigail grabs his neck and is the right moment for the injection, which is unsuccessfully thrown out of reach. Sammy watches everything and helps, but only receives a bite on her arm. Then Abigail begins to fly and drags Frank by his leg, and Peter jumps and knocks her over. At the last minute, Joey grabs the injection and injects her, causing her to sleep. Now they are safe, but Sammy is worried about what will happen to her after the bite, which no one knows. Abigail wakes up and finds herself locked up and acts like a victim, and a little girl, which doesn't work anymore. Then she says she planned all this and brought them here just as she wanted because Lambert works for her. She mentions all their names and how they failed in their job, where they represent her father's enemies. But besides that, Joel has something to say, which is irrelevant. No matter how many enemies her father takes out, he will never love her. This means they can't trade her for their lives because her father won't agree. Abigail tells them they are just like everyone she has brought here before, ending up in the pool of dead. She gives them a chance that whoever opens the door and lets her out will be spared, while the others will be dead. Peter causes a stir because it's worth a try in his opinion and reaches for the door, only for Joey to shoot him on the side. Now injured, he goes upstairs with both girls while Frank stays to keep watch. Abigail says the offer is still valid, and Frank wants to know how to get out of here, so they make a deal. She says the exit is in the library by the book, and then there were none. When he finds out, he wants to leave, but she reminds him that a deal is a deal. He approaches the padlock but doesn't unlock it, just teases, and she laughs because she could have opened the door whenever she wanted. She was just toying with them. While she attacks him, Joey manages to create light, which cuts off Abigail's arm, and she begins to regenerate as they flee into the library. Sammy checks to see if she can stand in the light, confirming that she is not a vampire, and Frank searches for a book to open a passage out of this house. However, the vampire tricked him because nothing happens, and he throws all the books down. Abigail waits for her moment to attack when night falls, while the others are losing hope and don't know what to do since Joey has run out of candy. Sammy has an idea. If they can find the power source, it might take down the door's protection so they can escape. They split into two teams, and on their way, Sammy begins to doubt herself, where Peter serves as a comfort. Not long after, Sammy notices her bite wound healing and starts to lose control, with Abigail taking over her. Peter turns around, and she suddenly disappears before biting him on the neck, with Abigail using her body as a vessel and continuing to feast. Then she informs the others over earplugs, as Sammy, to come to her while she dances. When she hears they are coming, she pretends to be Sammy, but Joey finds it all suspicious and tells Frank to run before she turns around. Sammy catches up to them, still under Abigail's control, and Joey uses a tray that reflects light, which kills her. Then a passage by the bookshelf opens, leading their path further. During the passage, they hear a recording of their conversation from when they first arrived, which leads them to a room with cameras where Lambert is, whom Abigail turned into a vampire 2 years ago. All he does is bring enemies of her father to where she plays with them. Lambert wants this to stop and offers a deal to Frank to help him kill Abigail, and in return, he can have whatever he wants. He has called her father, planning to kill him too. But there is one condition. He needs to turn Frank into a vampire, which he agrees to. After the bite, he transforms, and Lambert shows him his first victim, whom it turns out is himself, as Frank resolves this due to Lambert's betrayal, feeling great as a vampire. Joey takes the weapon just in case, and Abigail appears, attacking him, but he bites her on the neck while Joey lowers the security and flees. However, she finds a locked door where she hesitates and calls for her son to hear his voice, but only receives a voice message as Abigail becomes exhausted and falls. Frank arrives and pushes her away, then throws her up as they fight, displaying their new vampire powers, appearing that Joey is powerless. He grabs her by the neck and throws her off the ledge when suddenly Abigail catches her and saves her. She is too weak to defeat him alone and asks Joey for help. If she helps her, she will let her go. They begin to fight, and something goes a bit better than before, where Frank again knocks them both down, severely injuring Joey by pushing her to the right while continuing to battle with Abigail, who almost drains all her blood. Then he returns to Joey and bites her neck because he wants to turn her into his puppet and control her. He orders her to get a weapon and kill Abigail, but she only pretends to be a puppet and attacks him. Then Abigail bites him, and while they fight, Joey helps her, and together they hold the weapon in front of him, where she tells him it takes a lot of time to learn how to make someone a puppet, stabbing his heart. Abigail thanks her for help and says that now that he is dead, she won't turn into a vampire. Joey is ready to leave and see her son when suddenly, Abigail's father, Lazar, appears smelling her blood, and Abigail defends her, saying she saved her life while he was not there. He kisses her hand and tells her to leave because dinner time is approaching. Joey finally escapes this nightmare house and gets into the van where she pulls out her candy, happy for her new chance at life where she can now see her son.